Douglas Murray, in recent days you've been praised by Donald Trump as my friend. Now that presidency, a bit of a firestorm. You think of tariffs, you think of the bond markets. What's your assessment of the Trump presidency?
I'm not sure that people should be surprised. One of the things that people should realise by now is that even Trump's critics concede that he does what he says he's going to do. And on the campaign trail, when I went to Trump rallies to write about them, I noticed that, tariffs were always in there. You know this. The tariff issue, always something he said he was going to do. He's now doing what he said he was going to do, and people are surprised and shocked.
Turning now to the concerns around podcast host Joe Rogan. What highlighted variations in their experiences on his platform? Make sure to like and subscribe.
Now, you've got something in common with Donald Trump, which is that you both appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
Although your experience was rather different. Let's just listen to this clip.
I feel you've opened the door to quite a lot of people who've now got a big platform, who have been throwing out counter-historical stuff of a very dangerous kind.
So what exactly is Joe Rogan doing wrong? Who's he platforming incorrectly?
Well, Joe Rogan's a friend. I've been on his podcast many times, but I really wanted to know why he'd been giving a platform to only one side in the debate about the Russia-Ukraine war. That is, he's sort of only had, as far as I can see, critics of Ukraine's defensive action. Likewise, he seems to have only had critics of Israel on, and no people who are, like me, defenders of Israel's reaction to the aggression of Hamas. And there's a third thing, which is the strange historical revisionists that he's also had on his show. I'm not trying to shut down anyone's debate or discussion, and I'm all for historical, inquiry, and like many people, I thrive on that. However,
emphasising the need of responsible discourse and historical accuracy, Murray harshly attacked Rogan's imbalanced attitude.
If you start pushing people who claim, for instance, that Churchill was the chief villain of World War II, and you don't counter that with responsible mainstream historians who can show you that that is ahistorical BS, I think you're misleading your viewers at some level. And I mean, a lot of people on the American right have worried about this for a long time. A lot of people on the American right didn't want to call out Joe Rogan or ask him about this. I felt I couldn't not do it.
The discussion got more heated as it focused on Islamic radicalism and the difficulties groups like Hamas provide.
Now, in your book, you talk about how Hamas is a pro-death cult movement, and you talk about how some of their language has been absorbed in the West. You talk about those protests taking place at US and indeed UK universities, and you're saying that if the West is not careful, I think you talk about how this misplaced Western sympathy could embolden forces that perpetuate a culture of violence. What do you mean by that?
Well, Hamas is self-confessedly a death cult. It worships death, it glorifies in death, it praises and seeks death. In the aftermath of October 7th, many people passed over Hamas's actions and got straight onto the issue of the Israeli counteraction. I didn't want the realities, the facts of what happened on the 7th to get lost in any way. Many people have done great reporting and journalism in the aftermath of that atrocity to put together what happened that day. The slaughter of 1,200 people in the most barbaric fashion, the taking of 250 hostages, stealing them from their homes and holding them and torturing them, some still there, like 21-year-old Edan Alexander from New Jersey. And that death cult attacked the citizens of a liberal democracy like ours. And instead of siding with the liberal democracy, many people in countries like Britain sided with the death cult. They sided with Hamas.
And you have been obviously writing about this issue.
Murray underlined Western media and society prejudices while starkly describing the crimes carried out by Hamas.
But I spent most of the last 18 months there, speaking to families, speaking to survivors, going around the hospitals, the morgues even, and finding out from the people hiding in their homes, from people who were slaughtering their relatives, right the way up through the Israeli war cabinet and much more. I've tried to piece together what happened on the day. And then my first-hand account of the war that has resulted. But the third thing, which the book is really about, which goes to your question, is that I believe that something has been revealed in our own societies in the West, in Britain and America and elsewhere, which is deeply concerning. This was an attack by a death cult on a democracy.
When Watt questioned Murray about earlier remarks on Islam in Britain, the argument finally got hot.
For 10, 20 years or so, and writing about Islamic extremism in this country. And in 2017, after the Manchester Arena bombing, you talked about, because of that threat of Islamic extremism, we should have less Islam in this country. Was that a wise phrase, talking about less Islam?
Well, I think it's perfectly wise phrase, perfectly open to misrepresentation. I think I said it at the encouragement of the BBC.
Well, I'm reading your article.
It was
you
on the
wrote
BBC.
In the Sun.
It was on the BBC. That's why.
I'm quoting what you said in the Sun. Less Islam. Surely, less Islam means less people of the Muslim faith. That means less Sajid Javids, less Sadiq Khans.
Well, that
it
depends.
Means anyone who's a Muslim. That's what it means, isn't it? Isn't that provocative?
I mean, it would also mean less people like the Abaidi family, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
But the point is, you're talking about less Islam. That is Muslim people.
No. Just bear with me, because I know better than you what I think. This country has had a wildly stupid and lax immigration policy for decades. And we allowed people like the Abaidi family, a family of jihadists who'd fallen out with Colonel Gaddafi because they were from rival jihadist groups. When the Abaidi family fell out with Colonel Gaddafi, they came first to London and then to Manchester. And one of the sons they gave this country was Salman Abaidi, who at the age of 22 killed 22 young girls at the Manchester Arena with a suicide bomb. One, by the way, for every year of life this country gave him. His brothers just stabbed and thrown boiling oil at 3 prison wards. Let me bear with you. Why were the Abaidi...
Murray fiercely pushed back, stressing the menace of extremism and Britain's immigration policy's shortcomings.
Hang on, why were the Abaidi family in the UK? Why is nobody interested in asking that? And I'll tell you what the problem here is. There are lots of types of extremism. You get far-right extremism, far-left extremism. When it comes to jihadist extremism, jihadism comes from Islam. Therefore, if it's 1%, 5%, 15% of people of the Muslim faith who follow that version of it, you've got a hell of a problem.
Douglas Murray came to a strong conclusion, challenging the media's delayed response and unwillingness to face hard facts.
And the more people, the larger, this is simple math, the larger the number of people who are followers of a faith that has not solved the extremism problem in its midst or drawn suitable lines, the more extremism you will have. You don't get that from the Catholic Church in 2023 or 4. You don't get it from the Methodists. You won't get it from the Quakers, and you won't get it from the Anglican Church.
Of course, there is a problem with fundamentalism and Islamic extremism.
And fundamentalist Islam comes from
Islam, you're saying less of everyone, which means less Sajid David,
no, it doesn't.
less Sadiq Khan.
No,
and you're stereotyping
no problem
everyone.
at all with Sajid. No, of course it's not stereotyping. I mean, this is a kind of dated conversation to my mind, because this is all being addressed elsewhere as we speak. Nobody else is as incredibly slow in learning as the British media and political class when it comes to this problem. Why is it the case that Saturday after Saturday we have thousands of people going through major British cities who support the death cults who would murder Jews and the rest of us next? That's a question you and I and Newsnight should answer.
Murray's final words emphasised important issues media organisations had to address and put responsibility back on them.